Hey guys, welcome to Full Shed Games. I am Andrew, also known as the Lich Lord, and today I am going to be giving you a comic book recommendation list. I have 10 comics/graphic novels here, and they're probably my 10 favorites that I have read. And I just thought I'd share with you guys and see what you thought. Maybe if you have read these, maybe you can comment a little bit, or maybe if you haven't read these, maybe you'll check them out and see if you like them or not. But first, I have to send a shout out to a fellow, somebody who does YouTube videos titled Comic Book Girl 19. A lot of the comics I've read were based off recommendations that she did in videos or reviews she did, and I just watched them and I was like, well, they all look interesting, so I picked a lot of them up and I read them and I really like them, and hopefully you guys might like them also. They're not all from what she has done in the past, but a few of them are. But anyways, I'll get right down to it. First one, and I actually just finished reading this one, the first volume that is Saga, which is a newer comic. I really like it a lot. It's written by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I'm pretty sure did the artwork. The artwork is great. I really like it a lot. The story is really awesome. Basically, the story is there's in kind of intergalactic war going on between these two races. Two people from these opposing races fall in love. They have a child. They're basically trying to escape the planet they're on. There's a lot of different influences I've noticed in this. Obviously, it's kind of a science fiction, kind of a. I guess if I was going to call it science fiction, I'd say it's space opera, definitely. But you could probably definitely also call it a space fantasy, because there are a lot of fantasy elements in this. I mean, they wield magic, and there's all kinds of different stuff going on with that. And it's really good though, and I noticed a big influence from the races from mythology, which I thought that was pretty cool also. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. I've only read the first volume. I'm really looking forward to reading the second volume and however many there are right now. The second recommendation I have is Doom 2099, which is obviously Doctor Doom. This is from Marvel Comics, and I should have said this earlier. Saga is from Image Comics. But yeah, this is from Marvel. This is interesting because it's basically the Marvel Universe in the year 2099. And obviously, it focuses around Doctor Doom, who is sort of an engineer. He's a monarch. I guess you could probably call him a dictator, maybe. But it's really interesting. There's a lot of other characters from the Marvel Universe, such as Spider-Man, the Punisher. I think Iron Man shows up at one point. But I really liked it a lot, and it's interesting. It's one of those comic books where it's like, I like this character, but at the same time, he's not a very good guy. So, I mean, it's definitely worth picking up, and yeah, I enjoyed it. That was written by Warren Ellis, and also the artwork in this is really well done. Yeah. Third, and at this point, I'm going to say that you're going to notice there's a lot of two writers in particular in this video, and those two writers are Alan Moore and Grant Morrison. They're definitely my favorite two comic book writers. They're very different, and they're very different in their own way, and very different from each other. And I would say that they're probably two of the best comic book writers in the field. They're obviously, I don't know everything about comics. There are probably a lot of writers out there that I haven't read that are really good, but they're definitely two of my favorites. Warren Ellis is also a really good comic book writer. That's the only thing from him that I have read. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of Grant Morrison and Alan Moore in this suggestion video. Yeah, the first one from Grant Morrison I have is probably the best Batman comic I have read, which is Arkham Asylum. It's Batman. It takes place in the Arkham Asylum. It really delves deeply into the psychology of Batman, and really, just the artwork is amazing. There's a lot of different stuff going on in this comic, and if you've read any Grant Morrison, you know that his comics are full of symbolism, esoteric things, different, just kind of, I guess, what people would call odd symbolism and things like that, themes that are a little bit out there. But I think that makes for a really interesting read, and I would definitely suggest this if you're a Batman fan, even if you're not a Batman fan, and obviously this is from DC Comics, but yeah, if you like Batman, or even if you're not really into Batman, I would suggest this because it's a really good comic, whether you like him or not. The fourth is also from Grant Morrison, which is All-Star Superman. I gotta admit that for the longest time, I was not a big fan of Superman. I know a lot of people have very mixed emotions when it comes to Superman. A lot of people hate him, a lot of people love him. I'm kind of in the middle there. I mean, I really like this comic. In fact, I would say this is one of the better superhero comic books I've read. But, I really didn't like Superman until I read this. And then I think, in order to really understand what Superman is about, you should really read this one because I think it gives you a good picture of Superman and what he's all about. Yeah. But, this is also from DC Comics. Frank Quietly did all the artwork, which his artwork is amazing. I can give you an example here. I know there's a few I had marked. Yeah, just as an example. That's just amazing artwork, and that's from the issue where he goes to Bizarro World. But yeah, it's really cool, and I really enjoy this comic a lot. I just read it this summer, and I probably read it in an hour or 2 hours. It just kept me turning pages, and yeah, I mean, if you have been thinking about getting into Superman at all, I would definitely start here. If you don't like Superman at all, I would suggest reading this because it might help you understand Superman a little bit more. Like I said, I'm not a giant Superman fan, but I do like this comic a lot, and it made me, give me a better appreciation for Superman as a superhero. Another comic from Grant Morrison is Flex Mentallo, and you're probably wondering right now, why would I ever want to read a comic about a guy in a leopard print bikini or a leopard print swimsuit? And believe me, it's a lot cooler than it looks on the outside. It's Grant Morrison, Frank Quietly, so the artwork is the same as what was in All-Star Superman. And the artwork is amazing. The basic story is there's this guy, he's a rock star, he's kind of at the pinnacle of what we would say, what everybody in American society at least kind of aspires to be. And he's completely depressed, he's thinking about killing himself, he takes a bunch of pills, and basically he just kind of has a revelation at the end, kind of, and it's really good, and there's a lot of esoteric symbolism throughout this comic, and it's definitely very enjoyable if you're into that sort of thing. It's definitely not for I wouldn't say it's for a beginner because there's a lot of symbolism, a lot of things going on that you really have to read into in order to really get the full effect of the comic. But I definitely really enjoyed it. This is another one where I read really quickly. Next, I have, and everybody has probably at least heard of this, Watchmen by Alan Moore. It's probably one of the most world-renowned comic book / graphic novels that is out there. This was published by DC Comics. And yeah, the artwork, everything from the artwork to the storyline is just amazing. If you don't know what the storyline is, it's basically this group of, I was going to call them anti-heroes, but they're not necessarily anti-heroes. Basically, being a vigilante, superhero, whatever, has been outlawed. And they're kind of ex-superheroes, and is kind of taking the different tropes from comic books, superheroes in general, and kind of making them more real, making them more realistic, if you kind of understand what I'm trying to say. But, I mean, basically, the Superman-type character, who is Dr. Manhattan, has all these strange issues, and he's not really able to communicate with people because people can't understand what he's saying. The vigilante type, who is Rorschach, is basically kind of right-wing sociopath who, doesn't, I don't know, he's just kind of crazy. The Owl, who's kind of like Batman, he has all these issues, and all the characters have different issues, and it kind of brings some reality to superheroes. And that's what I would say is the main difference between Alan Moore's writing and Grant Morrison's writing, is that Grant Morrison's are very making superheroes. I don't want to say less realistic, but more like superheroes, where Alan Moore is making superheroes more like ordinary humans and kind of dealing with the everyday problems that everybody else faces. Which is interesting. Some people might like it more, some people might like it less, but I don't know, I guess that's just philosophical differences at that point. But yeah, definitely read this. It's an awesome comic. It deals with a lot of different issues as well that are going on in the real world. And another one from Alan Moore is V for Vendetta, another one that pretty much everybody has heard about at some point in their lives. The basic story to this is V, who is basically an anarchist. I guess he's attempting to overthrow the government that is controlling London at a time, which is basically a fascist government. And yeah, he's called a terrorist by the government, but freedom fighter by others. So there's a lot of different issues going on in this one. Also, it's a very political book. But yeah, and also, I mean, as somebody who reads a lot of science fiction, you can see kind of how certain novels speak to each other through the ages. Like, you see a lot of aspects of, like, Orwell's 1984, and, Burgess, Clockwork Orange, Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, and all these novels, books, kind of speak to each other to a certain extent, and this one definitely does too. This is probably one of my favorite comics, and for many reasons. And yeah. Next one is the Conan graphic novels from Dark Horse. There are currently, I think, 11 of these, 10, and a prequel. And I have to admit that these are kind of my guilty pleasure. I mean, they're really a simple read. They're just Conan. He goes around and he steals stuff from people and he slays people. And yeah, they're just really fun. And the artwork is also very amazing. They're actually taken from the original stories from Robert E. Howard, who is the creator of Conan, and they basically just translated those stories into graphic novel form, which is really great. And this is extremely entertaining. And all of these I read in probably less than like 3 or 4 hours, just because I get them and you just kind of speed through them. Okay, 2 more. The next one is Glory, which actually, this was one that I read because Comic Book Girl 19 did a review of it. And, when I first picked it up, I wasn't really sure how I felt about it because, I know it's from Image Comics. It's more of an indie type of comic, but it's really awesome. And one of the things I really like about it is it has a lot of interesting female characters in it who... are not only, a lot of times you see tropes and things like that in comics, and it's interesting because it goes through a lot of different archetypes for female characters. There are also interesting male characters through this too, but instead of just having very one-dimensional female characters, they're very three-dimensional. They feel like they could be real characters. Other than the fact that she's like half half-breed alien thing. But yeah, she's pretty much just a badass. She's kind of a female version of the Hulk. Not quite as rage out as Hulk. She kind of keeps the same form, but she can rage out at times, and when she does, she kind of gets bigger, and if you can tell from the artwork, she gets like these spurs and stuff that grow out. And yeah, it's cool, and the artwork is very well done. This is written by Joe Keating, and the artwork is done by Ross Campbell, so yeah, I'll actually give you an example of some of the artwork. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good example. Yeah, I like this a lot, and it was going to be canceled, I think, for a while. There were rumors that it was going to be canceled, but I don't think it has been yet. And I just got the 2nd volume. I'm looking forward to reading that. And yeah, definitely check that one out. And the last one was originally an indie comic written by James Stokoe, and the art is also done by James Stokoe, and it's called Orcstain. It's a very interesting look at a kind of orc society, I guess you could say. It's very funny. It's meant to be kind of a humorous comic, but he does all his own artwork, which I think is cool. I'll just give you an example of some of the artwork here. I think that's a good example of some of the artwork and whatnot. But yeah, it's definitely really fun, and there's another example. It's basically, it basically is trying to say that orc society isn't necessarily amoral. It's more like saying, it's just like everybody acts this way, so everybody acts the same way, so things just go downhill. And yeah, it's entertaining, and it's also got really great artwork, so I would definitely suggest checking it out. But that's it for this video. If you have read any of these, let me know, and let me know what you thought of them. If you haven't, then I think you should check them out. I think that, either being a beginner or, a veteran reader of comic books, you could like them either way. But please like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you next time.